Welcome, my friend. Seven Gray here. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. If you're just joining me for this episode, this is an ongoing series on nomadic passive income. It's for those of you who are digital nomads traveling the world in a backpack or whatever, RV living, full-time, van life. Those kinds of individuals are all typically looking for some sort of income to continue their nomadic lifestyle. And you have a choice of two different types. One is active income, where you actually put in hours, you punch the clock for a salary or for dollars per hour. The other option is passive income, which I think is more durable in the long term. And so that's what this series is about. Today I want to address two different areas of passive income. One is different kinds of passive income that are available for people who are nomads, some of those that may be a good fit for you. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is the three components that go into a passive income stream that you're setting up. It's not nearly as easy as active income, which requires very low level entry for those three components. So those three components I'll run through really briefly and then describe in depth. Those are money, knowledge, or effort, like elbow grease, so to speak. So let's talk about those three components in depth. The first is money. If you throw a lot of money at something, doing a passive income stream is relatively painless as far as the effort that you physically have to put into it, and even the knowledge that you need in order to start something. You can hire people who are knowledgeable about something if you trust them. You can hire people to do the labor and the grunt work if you trust them. It's just a matter of that costing you a lot more money. For instance, you can purchase an existing functioning business with the staff in place and the expertise in place for a higher dollar amount, and that will create a passive income for you with very little oversight or effort on your part. So that's certainly one option that you can go with. For example, if you wanted to purchase a storage unit, you could purchase a 60-unit storage park or something like that for $500,000, and then you have maybe taking over a existing park that exists, and you hire their employee that's been in place for 5 years to continue with you under X amount of salary, and you have your ongoing expenses. You have a system already in place. You have a high dollar value to invest initially, and then you know what your returns are based on the history of the place for the last few years. So that is one option for passive income. Now that may not be, or probably is not, the solution for you, because you may not have $500,000 to invest. So the question is, if you don't have a large dollar value to invest, what are your other options? Well, the two other components that can go into that are your actual labor, your efforts, your elbow grease, as well as the knowledge that you would need for some other passive income. So those are the areas where you can reduce the amount of dollars that go into something by putting more effort into it or more knowledge into it. Let's move to the other side of the equation and pick another example. Let's say you write an ebook. Writing an ebook may take you months. It may take a year. It may take 2 years. If you do some research about up-and-coming writers and how much time it took them to produce their first novel or their first book that became a hit or the first book that they were able to support themselves, oftentimes this is something that takes months or years to put together. That's a tremendous amount of elbow grease and labor and effort that goes into something to set it up. Once it's set up, then you have a passive income stream that comes in through revenue from checks from the sales of the book. The same could be said for music or any artistic endeavors like that that create something that becomes a product that can be sold for passive income. So that's another example of something where you can put a lot of effort into something, but maybe very little financial resources into it and produce a revenue stream. So let's look at the other category, which is category number 3, and that is intellectual knowledge. There are many areas where you can train yourself and give yourself new skills that will develop a passive income stream for you. For instance, let's say you know nothing or very little about coding, and that means programming like computers and software and things along those lines. One of the big markets that's available right now is writing apps. It's very, very competitive, but you could do online tutorials, online classes at a very low cost. You could train yourself studying hours a day and on weekends to do coding. This may be a process that might take 6 months, might take a year, might take more. It depends on your level of interest, your level of competency, your natural inclinations towards that way of thinking, coding, which is its own way of logic and working in your brain. But if you became somebody competent in coding and you had a brilliant idea of some app, you may be able to release an app that would be wildly successful, and your profit would be maybe $1 or $2 per sale of the app, and you multiply that by thousands of downloads, then all of a sudden you have an income stream of several $1,000s a month or several $1,000s a week. And that's something that could easily happen if you were able to put in the effort to learn a new skill and then had an idea that would facilitate the sales. For instance, an example of that might be the new van life app that launched in a beta version just a couple of months ago, and I'll put a link down below to that, and they're still sort of in their beta phase with that. But it's a brilliant idea to create an app that connects the van life community and connects resources and information that van life people might want, like places to stay, resources to pull upon for the lifestyle, things that are unique and needful and desirable for van life individuals. So that's an idea of an app where someone with maybe no skill set in programming has taught themselves how to do coding or partnered with someone who had that skill to create something for a potential market that they saw available. And maybe there's some other idea that you have. There's some excellent exercises in Timothy Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek book, which I've recommended before, to go through and look at what types of resources you have in your background and the experiences of life that allow you to generate some sort of passive income or business idea model that you could come up with. This particular series is going to be primarily about passive income from real estate investment rental properties. So future videos will be focused pretty much just in that one area. So let's go through various forms of passive income that may work for you as a nomad. So here are a few items that I came up with. Obviously, number one is real estate investments. That's going to require a significant higher dollar value to enter into. You can probably get into it for $8,000 to $10,000 starting out, and I'll be talking in future episodes about how that can be done. Another obvious one that people talk about and people have mentioned in comments before is stocks. And that could be a wide variety of stocks. Typically, stocks drop into two different categories. One is going to be stocks that increase in value, and that is your actual quote-unquote earning is something that's increasing in value. Let's say you buy Apple stock and you buy it at $50 a share, and then over a year it appreciates to $100 a share. I don't know how much a share it's running right now, probably way more than that. But that would be an increase in value. That doesn't necessarily equate to money in your bank account every single month because it's just something that's increasing or decreasing in value. You might as well own a gold statue on your shelf that increases in value or decreases in value. It doesn't put money in your pocket. So category number 2 for stocks are stocks that render or give a dividend. and dividends can be granted to you on any scheduled basis. It could be monthly, it could be quarterly, it could be yearly. But let's say you found a stock that had monthly dividends and you invested in that, then some percentage each month would come to you in the form of a dividend, a payment of money going to your stocks. Now, just to mention about stocks and just industry-wide, and this varies just radically as far as income year by year, month by month, but looking in the big picture, you might be looking at 7-8% or something like that is considered an industry norm for income from stock, versus real estate typically could be 9 or 10%, and again, industry-wide for rental investment properties. My particular equation and the way I went, my rental revenue income is closer to 15%. I would say that I was just in the right place at the right time and made the right investments for that ratio to come out the way it did. And in future episodes, I'll be explaining why that turned out the way it did for me, but maybe would not be quite the same way for you buying into the market right now. Another obvious one, because you're watching YouTube, is YouTube income. It's something that is wildly popular right now in the RV community, in van life, and digital nomads. And it's something that I think you could start with fairly easily. You don't need to have a big fancy camera or invest thousands of dollars. In fact, I would recommend you not do that. I filmed the first 200 videos that I had with a small little GoPro Cube, and so you don't need much. You could start with just your phone and the camera on your phone and shooting video that way. It's really about creating content that is interesting to viewers and making a connection with your viewers so you get regular subscribers who want to follow you on your channel. But so regarding passive income versus active income, there's basically two types of YouTube videos out there. There's videos that are vlogs, more like what you're seeing here, that may not be something that's going to create much passive income in the future. This particular video series has a higher chance of creating longevity in passive income because it's something that's not necessarily time sensitive. And so the more you go with content like that, the better chance you have with passive income. There's a term that's used by YouTubers called evergreen content. That means creating something that's not time sensitive that will continue to generate revenue over a long period of time. And you can do some background and research and just keyword searches on YouTube on evergreen videos and how to do those. But it's creating a video that's going to have durability and something that you can watch for a long period of time. One of the most interesting ways to make income, and I think probably one of the most viable ways with a low startup cost, is doing an Amazon store and selling products on there with drop shipping. Now, if you don't know what all of those things mean, I'll walk through the basic logic of it. The basic concept, and there's many videos on how to do this, is to start an Amazon store. You have a fairly low entry cost into doing that. You would get your local business license, and there are services out there that will do what's called drop shipping. Let's say you are selling camera equipment. You could receive an order on your Amazon store for a particular camera, and then your provider will ship that camera for you to the customer directly and put your label on the camera as the sender, as well as an invoice inside of it. That's called drop shipping. So it's a pretty brilliant thing, because if you're traveling around in your van or your RV, you don't have to carry the inventory. You would have a small cut that you get for setting up the store and making the sale, and then the item is shipped directly to your customer, and then you get paid. So you can see how this is a great way to create passive income, in that you just set something up once and then it creates this revenue. Now, it does require a certain amount of grooming to your store. That might be going in once a week and removing items that are outdated. A new camera model comes out and you want to replace the old camera model with the new camera model. Another form of passive income is to create something one time and then put it up for sale somewhere on a store or a service. For instance, stock photography. You could take your camera out and shoot photos of, say, a glacier or a mountaintop, or of your dog, or of a product like a wristwatch or something like that, and then put it up for sale in a stock photography gallery or a store like that. And people going there that are looking for a photo of a wristwatch, then they would buy your photo from this stock service. And maybe they pay $3 or they pay $10 for that, and you get a certain percentage of that. The downside with this is that it's very, very competitive, and that the sales are very, very low, meaning that you may put up 1,000 photos and you may only sell 1 or 2 a month or something like that. And so it's a high level of work and effort put into it for very, very low return, unless you're very, very good or you have some sort of niche that is extremely desirable that you can create that nobody else does. So that is another avenue. That is something you could pursue, but you may want to investigate the return on your investment of time and money and effort, and how much goes into your pocket. Ebooks are another option. You could write a book, as mentioned earlier in this video, and publish it, and then that creates revenue. Another one is coding or software, which I mentioned. You could create a new piece of software that creates fancy screensavers for your computer, or maybe makes barking sounds of dogs. A few other ideas that involve a high level of investment of dollars. A couple of those ideas would be storage units. Another one that I've mentioned in the past is the car wash. That's a coin-operated car wash, or even a more modern one that takes debit cards, credit cards, something like that. Again, higher dollar value investment, certain amount of maintenance, and then you have a passive income source. One that I've not mentioned before is setting up a coin laundry. You would need to rent a commercial space. That could be a separate building. It could be one unit in a strip mall, something like that, and purchase a number of machines, washing machines, dryers, things along those lines. You would need to have a staff, one or possibly more persons, to be on site to maintain machines. You would need to have repairs. You would have to have a certain amount of resources to keep that going, but it would create a regular revenue stream, and that is one more option. So all of these have a certain trade-off of time, money, or knowledge that go into them to get things set up, and then they all have different levels of income streams as they progress into the future. And so that's really what you want to be looking at. So these are all things to keep in mind as you're putting together your passive income stream. That's all I have for this episode today. Thank you so much for watching. Savor the moment, and I'll see you next video.